Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Swas. Continuing on with college football week 7. Got a Wednesday night game here, and it's a real scorcher. Another Conference USA matchup, New Mexico State, Jacksonville State. Let's go.
Welcome to The Swas. The Swas. Swas. Hey, get the Swas.
All right, like I said, New Mexico State on the road at Jacksonville State for this one. Gamecocks laying 20.5 points at home. Total sitting at 58.5 or 59, depending on your sports book. Take a quick look at the pie charts, and according to this data, action's coming in heavy on the New Mexico State side. Over 80% of the tickets, over 85% of the money. Again, as I always say, though, take this data with a grain of salt. So let's get into this matchup. New Mexico State got the win last year, 2017. That was Jacksonville State's first year in the conference, first year in the FBS, actually. Jacksonville State was actually favored in the game, but New Mexico State had won 7 in a row leading up to this one. So that was actually their 8th consecutive win. Final score was 2017, like I said. But we're not worried about last year. Those were completely different teams. Zion Webb was playing quarterback for Jacksonville State. And obviously, this is not the Jerry Kill, Diego Pavia, New Mexico State team. That team's basically over at Vanderbilt now. So this is a completely new matchup. So what do we think about it? New Mexico State has still been running the ball, not quite as much as they did last year. They're 55th in run frequency so far this year, so they're definitely running the ball a bit less than they did last year, but I mean, that could be a result of being down on the scoreboard. They're yet to record a win. So, yeah, you're losing in games. You're going to have to throw the ball. If you look at their offensive numbers, I mean, this passing attack is abysmal. They're dead last in the FBS in yards per pass attempt, 130th in success rate per dropback, 131st in effective pass. One of the worst passing attacks in all of college football, actually. Rushing numbers actually look okay. 80th in yards per carry, 56th in success rate, 49th in effective rush. That's solid for a Conference USA program. The problem with New Mexico State has been the quarterback position. They started the year off with Awad. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. He started the first 3 games. I mean, he was completing 36.4% of his passes. 36.4, just 243 yards total, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They have since made the switch to Marucci, and I mean, he's been better, but 47.5% completions. I mean, I don't know if I'd call that good. If we compare the New Mexico State passing numbers from the first 3 games to the last 2 games, I mean, I guess it does look better with Marucci. 38.3% success rate per dropback, certainly better than 21.7%. So, yeah, I guess it is a little better, but this has been a really bad passing attack that we've seen from New Mexico State. Maybe now that Marucci is the starter, they go into the bye week, right? He has 2 weeks to prep for this game. Maybe he comes out looking a little bit better, but as a whole, this has not been a college football team that's been able to pass the ball. So when we pull up Jacksonville State's defensive numbers on the year, we can see they've actually struggled against the pass. 110th in yards per attempt, 105th in success rate per dropback, 118th in effective pass. But that honestly doesn't even worry me because we're seeing New Mexico State struggle to throw the ball against some bad defenses. So, okay, Jacksonville State's defense has struggled against the pass. Is New Mexico State even equipped to take advantage of that? I mean, based on what we've seen so far, you'd have to say no. And you know what? Jacksonville State's pass defense numbers look terrible on the year, but I mean, their first 2 games against Coastal and Louisville, they got carved up. 11.85 yards per attempt, 317.5 yards per game, over 52% success rate. It was bad. Look at their numbers against the pass in their last 3 games. Eastern Michigan, Southern Miss, and Kennesaw State. Just 169.3 passing yards allowed per game, 6.13 yards per attempt, 37.8% success rate per dropback. So the Jacksonville State pass defense, yeah, the numbers on the year look bad, but the last 3 games, now that they're seeing some shittier offenses, let's say, they've actually done a decent job defending the pass, and New Mexico State is most definitely a shitty passing offense. Yes, it does worry me that Jacksonville State's pass rush has been non-existent, just 123rd in the country in pressure rate, 113th in sack rate. Definitely don't love the look of that, but you want to know whose offensive line has been god-awful in pass protection? New Mexico State. They're 111th in pressure rate allowed, 97th in sack rate allowed. So, look, I'm not saying Jacksonville State's pass rush is all of a sudden going to be elite, but this New Mexico State offensive line has struggled as well. But what about the run game? We know this New Mexico State offense is trying to run the ball, and I mean, really hasn't been there. In their first 4 games, just 120.8 rushing yards per game, 3.18 yards per carry. 43.5% success rate per rush actually isn't bad, but I mean, it really wasn't very effective. It did show up last game, 285 yards, 8.14 yards per carry, 50% success rate against New Mexico, but we were watching Montana State rip New Mexico's defense up. I mean, that defense is in shambles. As a whole, I'd say New Mexico State's rushing attack, although it looks decent on paper, it's not something I would call good. And Jacksonville State's defense has done a solid job against the run in their last 3 games. Just 3.47 yards per carry allowed in their last 3 against Eastern Michigan, Southern Miss, and Kennesaw State. Now, we do have to point out that if we go by Sharp College Football's effective rush rankings, New Mexico State will be by far the strongest rushing attack that Jacksonville State has seen in a while. In their last 3 games, the 3 teams they've seen 97th, 131st, and 134th. New Mexico State's 49th. So if you plan on betting Jacksonville State in this one, you definitely don't like the look of that, considering their first 2 games when Jacksonville State saw some tougher competition, Coastal Carolina and Louisville, they actually got run all over. 5.74 yards per carry allowed, 58% success rate, 264 rushing yards allowed per game. Now, there's a couple things to take into consideration here. Number 1, Coastal Carolina and Louisville. New Mexico State, even though their effective rush rating is 49th, they do not belong in the same sentence as Coastal Carolina and Louisville. That's number 1. And number 2, this Jacksonville State run defense was very good last year. They lost a lot of pieces on that defense, a lot of new faces. But from what I read, they did well in the portal and they like the talent they have. So it could be, hey, this is what happened when Jacksonville State saw some powerful rushing attacks. It also could be, hey, it was the first 2 games of the season with new starters on the defense and they needed a few games to get it together. Most likely when you have a question like that, the answer is somewhere in the middle, probably a little bit of both. So I definitely like that Jacksonville State's defense seems to be trending in the right direction, starting to look a little bit like the elite run defense we saw from them last year. And look, even if you're not a believer in Jacksonville State's defense, which I understand, I said before the season started that I wasn't big on this Jacksonville State team this year. Even if you're not a believer, look at what New Mexico State has done in their 2 road games so far this year. They're averaging 5.5 points per game, just 2.46 yards per play. 2.46 yards per play in their 2 road games. Those 2 games were against Fresno State and Sam Houston State. So it's not like they were on the road at Tennessee or Georgia or something. They played Fresno and Sam Houston. That offense looked terrible on the road. So, I mean, overall, you got the Jacksonville State defense trending in the right direction, a New Mexico State offense that needs to run the ball and can't, that's looked terrible on the road. I'd say it's a solid spot for Jacksonville State defensively. But what about on the other side of the ball? Let's take a look at the Jacksonville State offense. 26th in run frequency. Honestly, this offense really hasn't looked how I expected it to look. Obviously, I thought Logan Smothers was going to be the quarterback for one. He lasted about 3 quarters into the season, looked terrible in that Coastal game. If you pull up the Jacksonville State offensive numbers on the year, it looks pretty good here. 23rd in yards per play, 49th in success rate. Rushing numbers look solid. Passing numbers even look okay. They're 89th in OFEI, which is solid for a Conference USA program. Tyler Huff's numbers on the year throwing the ball, I mean, he's not setting the world on fire, but he is making plays. 9.2 yards per pass attempt is solid. Over 1,000 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. And check this out. In Jacksonville State's last 3 games, they're averaging over 246 passing yards per game, over a 50% success rate per dropback, 10.53 yards per pass attempt. Look, this Jacksonville State offense is still a unit that wants to run the ball, but we can't sleep on this Jacksonville State passing attack with this kid Huff anymore. They are making plays through the air. And when you look at the New Mexico State defense, you can point at the Sam Houston State game and be like, hey, New Mexico played the pass great in that game, which is true. They allowed just 3.9 yards per attempt. But here's the thing, Sam Houston State doesn't throw the ball. They're 10th in run frequency. They beat New Mexico State, I think it was 31-11. They beat the shit out of them. So yeah, the pass defense numbers look good because Sam Houston State wasn't trying to throw the ball. Look at their pass defense numbers in their other 3 FBS games, allowing over 9.1 yards per attempt. 39% success rate per dropback actually isn't bad. 249.3 passing yards allowed per game. And I mean, look at the teams. Liberty, New Mexico. I mean, these are teams looking to run the ball. Fresno throws it, but Mikey Keene played really well against this defense. So this is not a pass defense I trust. And when we pull up these numbers, look, I know it says that they have decent numbers against the pass, but again, they haven't really played many passing attacks. Fresno State's pretty much the only one, and Mikey Keene played well. So, okay, maybe they're decent against the pass. Maybe they're decent, but look at their run defense numbers. We just got done saying how Jacksonville State's 25th in run frequency. This is an offense that's looking to run the ball. New Mexico State 128th in yards per carry allowed, 114th in success rate, 126 in effective rush. This is not a good run defense. And although Jacksonville State got off to a slow start running the ball this year, in their first 3 games against Coastal, Louisville, and Eastern Michigan, just 4.17 yards per carry, 130.7 rushing yards per game, 36.1% success rate. These are not great looking numbers. They do seem to be turning it on a bit. In their last 2 games against Southern Miss and Kennesaw State, 6.5 yards per carry, over 328 rushing yards per game, and a 54.6% success rate on the ground. They ran all over Southern Miss and Kennesaw State. And you might be saying, oh, well, Kyle, that's Southern Miss and Kennesaw State. Man, I would take both of those run defenses over New Mexico State right now. Look at New Mexico State's run defense numbers in their 4 FBS games. Over 277 rushing yards allowed per game, 6.13 yards per carry, 48% success rate. Teams have been running all over New Mexico State, and this Jacksonville State run game, like I said, seems to be finding its groove. So as far as betting this game, I mean, dude, it's a Wednesday night Conference USA game. I'm not going to pretend like, oh, I'm all in or anything. But personally, I think Jacksonville State should win comfortably. We just saw last week in the Kennesaw State game, Rich Rod has no problem running the score up. So 20.5 seems like a big number, but based on what we've seen so far, I think they should win by at least 3 touchdowns. So that'll be my pick for this one. Jacksonville State minus 20.5. If you're tailing, please bet responsibly. Number 1, these midweek games are crazy. Number 2, I've been cold in college football recently, so please tail responsibly. If you'd like to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. You'll see all mine as well as everyone on the staff here. Also, if you sign up to Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. $150 in one of these trophies go to the winner every single week. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Let's have ourselves a nice college football week 7. I certainly need it based on how this season has gone. Please remember to bet responsibly. Talk to you in the Discord.